I think IDTA was India Deep Tech Alliance was an alliance like also mostly from the Indian funds as well. A couple of other funds or even CVCs that are there. I think these initiatives are generally very good to further the ecosystem, right? But I'm still very concerned about Series A investments from funds outside of India. That's a weak point for us, and that's what we have been also discussing in the industry that we need to enable that. Right, seed we are good. Beyond Series B, we are good because beyond Series B, people don't care where you're domiciled, so on and so forth, because they're looking at scale at that time. Growth is where you're looking at. Whereas Series A is still you're on the cusp of the growth. Still, people funds outside of India feel very nervous of investing in companies domiciled in India or founders being in India and so on and so forth. So I think that is still a challenging space for us.
Hi, wherever you're joining me, I hope you're doing well. Welcome to India Tech Report, a podcast dedicated to chronicling and supporting the growth of India's deep tech and climate tech startup ecosystems. I'm HrdWyr, and today is the first day of the second year of this podcast. In this episode of Conversations, I'm really happy to bring you part one of an interview with Naganand Doreswamy, Managing Partner, and Suryaprakash Konanuru, CTO at Ideaspring Capital. They're among those few VC investors in India who were backing deep tech startups long before the government's massive research and development and innovation fund prompted everyone to grab a share of the pie. This was a rich conversation for me to record with plenty of plain speak without jargon that's characteristic of these two VCs. We jump right in with Ideaspring's latest investment, the $13 million Series A round, the $13 million Series A round that they led at semiconductor company HrdWyr, how that reflects their views on deep tech investing today in India, what the RDIF has done, and challenges that remain. I hope you enjoy listening to this as much as I did recording it. Let's go. Okay, so Naganand, sorry, thank you for giving me one more opportunity to learn from you. And within the Indian deep tech startup ecosystem, you all are now very well known names. So I won't take up too much time on the background. In fact, I thought I will dive right into the deep end, pun intended, with your HrdWyr investment. And then through the course of the conversation, I thought we'll circle back to Ideaspring and a little bit of a journey and some of your views, forward-looking views. So all yours. Let's get into how you found HrdWyr. Why did you invest in them? What's exciting about them? And what does that reflect in terms of how India's deep tech ecosystem is evolving? Yeah.
So HrdWyr investment is a journey over a couple of years actually. And Shiva was trying to do something in the semiconductor space in India. We got introduced to him through various friends and common connects, and started talking to him about what he was trying to do in the semiconductor space, because he had this intention of trying to build a platform for the semiconductor chips designed in India, developed in India, and then also some customers to start with India and then also potentially look global, right? But that aligned with Ideaspring thesis of investing in semiconductor startups, which was going to address the Indian chip industry problem. Because, as you know, 18 to $20 billion is still what we are importing as chips. And like in many other fields, with all the weaponization that's happening for various technological products, India cannot be held ransom again in the chip space as well. Those are the kind of problems we anyway want to address in Ideaspring. So that alignment came in. So we started talking to him, and then that slowly took better shape, and we went deeper and deeper into the products they were developing. And the first product that HrdWyr is developing is for the Indian white goods manufacturers. It can be in brushless motors, it can be in small chargers, and so on and so forth. But the idea is we can replace importing of chips by chips developed in India. So this chip is developed in India. Of course, we have to go outside for fabrication. But the packaging will happen in India and the customers will be in India, right? So I think we want to build that ecosystem. And fast forward 3-4 years, hopefully then we will be able to start looking at more complicated chips. There are a few startups in India, you must have read, that is also developing complicated chips. So that is one set of guys who are building immediately for the global market. But we have taken the approach of, look, let's solve the local problem first. So it won't be a very high end chip. It'll be a not technologically complicated, but it'll address India problems. But that team then will start working on problems that are more and more complicated. So we have started looking at the next level of chips as well, into the data centers and things like that. But this is how we are looking at it. Number one. And number two, I think the team was very, very solid. They're like 35 years experience in the semiconductor industry. And we believe that it'd be very important to bring any chips out of India. So I think that was another positive factor for us. And the third was also and since we are a smallish fund, it's not Ideaspring is not a very large fund. We also wanted to make sure that the capital budget fits what Ideaspring can invest in. And that's the reason why you're also doing a chip that is not like 2 nanometer or 5 nanometer. Whether that is cost prohibitive because you're looking at, close to $100 million investments if you're starting to get that domain. So this enables us to also make it very capital efficient for what we can do. So these are all 3, 4 factors that came together, and that's how we decided that we should work with these founders and let the investment in HrdWyr.
Mm.
See, they work on the power management. Basically, like there is a time series where actually they can collect data, right, about how the charging is being done, and there are harmonics and all those things, right? So they analyze and actually like they can predict, okay, is the charging going okay? How actually the battery is behaving and things like that, right? That's very important. Because that determines like how well the charging is happening and how well the discharging is happening, things like that, right? The battery life, all that. So that they are doing it for white goods today, but there are similar issues even in the data center space and all, because there's more and more power being used, right? So that's the path we are looking at for HrdWyr. And basically, like as Naganand was mentioning, these guys are experts in taping out chips. So that's one more thing which actually like helped us in making this decision, right? So initially it's a very simple chip, but as you go and build for like more current, more voltage and all those things, it's become complicated.
So just to add to on the Indian deep tech ecosystem, to the other part of your question, Hari, look, we are realistic about where we stand, right? I don't think we can claim that we are capable, competent, both from a capital and from a market perspective, that we can bring world-class chips or world-class, in all sectors. I think we have to be very, very choosy in what battles we pick. Because I think from a talent perspective, there's no doubt that we can find the talent, right? It's there, not in volumes, but at a reasonable level, talent is there. But for the product to bring out products to the market, capital becomes a question mark, right? If you want to, like, say, we want to do something in the foundation model, which we may or will not do at this time, probably from Ideaspring at least, you're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars, right? So it's like capital becomes prohibitive. So we have to be careful about that. And number two is the market in India is still limited. Who will buy whatever we've done, right? If you're not buying here, then obviously you have to sell outside. And if it's a complicated deep tech product, selling outside initially becomes hard. So I think these are some questions that we still are figuring out as to how best to have answers to these questions, but you will know only when you try. Right, so the risk is still very high in doing these things, because you have to get something out and try it out, and there are a few companies that are doing that now, like Tombow has done it, IdeaForge has done it. So there are some examples that are coming out, and then obviously you have the first $1 billion company in Skyroot now. So good examples coming. I think that's a good start, right? The flywheel has started turning now. Now we have to build on that momentum. And I think we are optimistic that it'll throw more opportunities for us and for other funds in India that are investing in deep tech, and then hence push it. And then I'm really hoping that the market also moves faster, right? Whether it's a defense buying, the government buying, because private sector is still limited in deep tech products, so you're still heavily dependent on defense, and that needs to really open up very quickly and then orient themselves to buy from startups as opposed to buying from very well established companies. I think those changes, if it happens in parallel to all the effort that are going in building these startups, I think that is when we believe that we'll be able to build something that is huge technologically. For example, a simple example, I don't think we can do it in India. China said they cannot import any NVIDIA chips anymore.
Yeah.
Right? What does it imply? You have to buy Huawei chips. So then you're encouraging the local ecosystem, saying you only have to buy Huawei chips, and then all the foundation models has to be built on local things. But can we do it in India? Very hard. We will, and I don't know if I support that also fully, because you have to compete. But at the same time, there has to be some preference given to the local ecosystem if we want to develop the local ecosystem. We cannot say we want to become the leaders and then not have support initially locally. Because there has to be some preference, like what we have done. An example I can give in case of Level Networks. They said PSUs, yeah, you can buy from the large guys, but 20% has to be bought from Indian startups, Indian companies. Put something like that encourages the Indian startups to build something, and most importantly, when you build something, you have a market. Otherwise, it becomes very hard.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, yeah, across the spectrum, I mean, from a small chip all the way to the Kaveri engine, I think we are really struggling to get the local ecosystem going
So
successfully.
somehow they have to increase the demand, right? So there are enough people who can build these things, but demand also has to go up.
Yeah. So from Ideaspring's point of view, I think if I recall right, especially from your second fund, you started looking at these type of companies more and more. So what does the HrdWyr investment say, or how does it reflect the way in which Ideaspring is now looking at the deep tech scene in India?
If you look at Ideaspring, the thesis in which Ideaspring was started is to support product innovation in India. See, when we started in 2016, what was the fundamental goal? We have to build products from India to the world, right? That was a fundamental goal. And then we have stuck true to the thesis since that time. But when you were 2016, we could not find that many deep tech or science startups in India per se, right? So if you look at, we invested in 16 companies, out of which I would say, we recently presented to RDIF, we said 3 or 4 max will be under that category. It's not because we didn't want to invest. It's just that the ecosystem didn't have it. And all the other companies were developing products, right? It's not that, because we are a B2B fund, we only invested in tech and science. But there were not that many when we started investing in 2016. Like that, people are using AI and other things, but that cannot be deep tech category, because you're building machine learning, neural network startups, but they're all applications of that, right? You're not doing fundamental work, right? So it was what was available in the market at that time. So you can only do one science company and Hamyun and a couple of other deep tech companies, like Simyo that we were able to do, right? And then you fast forward to Fund 2, we have done 17 companies. Out of, I would say, 11 belong to deep tech and science. Again, and our philosophy, our thesis remains the same. It's just that we have been able to find better companies, right? So it went from 3 on 16 to 11 on 17. And I think in Fund 3, it'll be even more. So most of the, we have given 3 term sheets now. And we are looking at another 5-6 startups.
Which are all deep tech.
Every one of them is, I would say, is deep tech or science. And that's just, that proves how the ecosystem in India is developing, right? And then we're quite happy about it. But I would still come back to in spite of all these things happening, I'm still a little nervous on the market. And I don't think we are fully understood that part, and that's something we'll all discover together. And then with working very closely with the government and the industries to say how best to enable that as well. But it's been a good progression in terms of how things are evolving and the kind of investments we are looking at. And companies like HrdWyr, the first investment in Fund 3, is a validation of the entire thing.
Okay, brief, little bit of a segue. The applications point really sort of caught my attention. So on the software side, is that changing? Are there entrepreneurs who are now going really very deep into systems and even beyond systems and truly fundamental work. Because, for example, even in vibe coding, there are companies that say that we've done very well, but it is not like any of that was made here in India. I mean, someone else invented the concept, invented vibe coding, and again, there are now Indian startups which are maybe doing more sophisticated applications than earlier. Um, what's your quick view on where we are going on that?
See, but in those people who are building on top of existing deep tech, right? Where is the moat? That's the issue. Okay, from an investor perspective, because you might have seen, right? Like all the Anthropic actually has started hiring biologists and all that, right? Basically, like they're trying to get into every space. So if you're only building application, tomorrow one of those next models can actually wipe you out. So that's where we have to be very, very careful. So it's better. So we keep looking at researchers or people from domain who actually come with deep knowledge, and they can actually like bring those ideas into actually make products out of that. Like bring research and make it a product, right? That has that's the mode. It has a technology mode. So that's where I think we are actually looking at a lot of startups which are based on research like 10 years, 15 years. It's not like some idea people got like a couple of months ago, things like that.
So just to add to Surya's point here, Hari, like we always look for differentiators. One of the key things that we look for during an investment is what is your differentiator? Why should people buy your product, right? When we started investing in 2016 in software companies, the team was a differentiator, and the fact that you understood the domain was a differentiator, and then how could you put together an effective solution was a differentiator, because it still took time to develop software. Right. So we have invested in quite a few companies where, like Koromi, for example, it was, workflow management of, packaging, artwork and management, and that we have done. Similarly, be to bring another company which says, okay, we'll ensure that the sales friction reduces and, you can capture the funnel easier. There are tons of examples and we can give with respect to that. But fast forward to today, it's like the entire software development process has changed. Right? What used to be multiple different functions, these all consolidated into one LLM, and then you have agentic framework that will run autonomously wherever. So we are now, when a company comes to us, we are saying, hence, where is your differentiator? Is capital the differentiator? Is go to market the differentiator? Because technologically, we are not. If you're building a vertical solution, what is the difference technologically? Or data is a differentiator? Is SLM a differentiator? So I think we have not been able to get a solid answer when it comes to a vertical application in that. You either have to say, okay, you rethink the way CRM works or rethink the way ERP works and go ahead and build the entire platform. That is one area. But if you say, I will build a platform for account payables, account receivables, or for loan lending, it's all becomes very hard to say. Why will you be still relevant 6 months down the road? And the other thing is, you always said, okay, it generally takes time for people to develop something and come to the market. And now that time has shrunk. So 2-3 things have happened, right? If you had a 20% team first, now it takes 5 people. If you took 9 months to develop something, now it takes 3 months. So the entire software development paradigm, as we knew it, has changed completely. Now we are also understanding the implications of, hence, what startups to invest in, what to look for, what will be their mode, what will be the differentiator, and that's been hard. I think if you talk to most people, they'll say that there's a lot of confusion around it. So hence, we are at this time saying gravitating more towards things that don't fall into that domain. And if it falls into that domain, we're saying there has to be an SLM that is differentiated, or it's a physical model that is differentiated. So something that we believe will stick 2 years down the road. God knows what's going to happen in 2 years. Even that we may fail, but because we have never seen anything change so quickly in our entire working history, right? So these are very, very challenging times. But fortunately, there are other sectors that we still are able to look at some very good startups, because we said the three verticals Ideaspring will invest in is enterprise tech, there's a deep tech, and there is biotech and pharma. So we are looking at deep tech and pharma. We are talking to a few in the enterprise tech as well, with differentiated things like physics models or SLMs or whatever. So, so that's been the change compared to the software, particularly software companies are going through a metamorphosis now.
Because the other thing is like the AI and all that also helps deep tech and deep science. Like that's because now there is nothing like very pure like deep science, right? Basically, like people are using AI to actually, but that there it actually acts like a enabler or a booster, right? So
It
that's a good thing.
accelerator. Yeah, it's accelerates things.
So the other point you made earlier about who's going to buy these products, is there a market? And you said right now defense has to accelerate. I mean, I guess that's what happened in the West. What are you seeing in terms of early signs that may be positive? I mean, we know a few examples. I think government has they have signed an MOU with a company like Pixel. They've probably done something similar with Galaxy.
They had a consortium also
There's a
in space.
consortium in space. So obviously, if Skyroot they build rockets, surely there'll be a market for that. But beyond some slightly more established startup sectors, deep tech sectors like space tech, what are you seeing in terms of whether there'll be buyers? And are the startups at a point where they are almost there in terms of showcasing a commercializable sort of early product, whether it's in drug development or since you mentioned biotech and life sciences. And in semiconductors, I guess we are getting there. There's a HrdWyr, there's a MindGrow, or there's an Encore. So yeah, just want to know your views on. At this stage, what do you see as the state of buyers' willingness for these startups?
So two things, right? I think defense buying procurement process changing will take time. Let's be honest about that, right? Because they have their set processes that work for a long period of time. And also, I think the guidelines of purchasing has to, like, people have to get used to buying from startups. And then rightfully so, right? Because you don't know which startup will sustain for what period of time. And then if you buy it, will there be anybody to service the product? The quality of the product is good. There are a whole bunch of questions that startup throws, right? One of the, in addition to the purchasing that you do, one other thing the government has done really well now is through the RDIF, right? What is RDIF doing? RDIF is now increasing the runway of these startups, right? So hence the capacity to survive has gone up. The capacity to deliver has gone up. And then even from the buyer's perspective, when they see that there's enough money sitting in the bank, they know that this startup is not going to go away tomorrow. So the capital risk to a certain extent is being addressed, because the government is also, government and the industry is looking at it holistically, saying for anything to go forward, you require talent, you require capital, you require market. And you have to address all three, right? You cannot just say, I'll just address the capital and let the other two go, or I'll just create the market without any capital. Nothing works. So all these things has to kind of work in cohesion. And that's happening now. So the fact that, a whole bunch of startups like TDB just released a grant, and the government is doing RDIF for second level fund managers. So these are all things that kind of stabilizes the ecosystem and gives more confidence in the procurement guys to say, all right, this startup will survive. So I think, that is being addressed. But in spite of it, of course, there has to be some fundamental changes in the way procurement happens, because a whole bunch of rules have been established, right? Or if you have to sell to us, you should have sold 100 crores before. I'm just using an arbitrary number. You have to take that out, because no startup would have had 100 crores of order. And, you have to be in existence for 10 years. No, we're only in existence for 3 years. So some fundamental changes may be happening. I'm giving an arbitrary example. It might not be like it. I'm just saying there's so much that is built into the system that you have to remove, and it will take time. Right, the intention is there, but the guys at the lowest level, they don't want to take risks. Why would they want to take? They'll just follow the rules, right? But what is required to buy from standards is the entire purchasing guy saying, no, we'll take some risks. And that change has to come. That cultural change has to come as well.
Yeah, actually, the cultural change is actually a very good point, according to me. Because I've seen, at least in my own case, like uh, customers willing to work with a startup and take that risk. And we used to say that, okay, we will take your call at like 2 a.m., but we'll support you. And they were actually taking our product with that assurance, right? We were giving the assurance, but they were taking the risk. So those kind of things have to happen more here. I think it will start happening, hopefully.
Yeah, I suppose. And actually, quite possibly, many smart people on the policy front, they must be studying how companies like SpaceX and Anduril came up back when they were like really scrappy startups, not like what they are today. Fair
See,
enough.
the proliferation from policymakers to people who actually decision makers at the lower, at the ground level, right? I think that's going to take time. That's where the cultural change has to come. Because I am sure, even the guys at the ground, they might have the good intentions, but all the policies and guidelines, they kind of prohibit them from taking any risk, right? Because we are very risk averse when it comes to those things. And now, if you are working, startup is all about risk. Now, how did that transition happen to say, no, I'm willing to take risks? And that's not an easy change. Let's give credit to the guys at the ground level making these decisions, because why should they take that risk if they're going to get caught taking that risk? So it's a very iffy change that we are asking for now.
Yeah. And some of these startups are building very critical things also, right? They're very critical for the buyer. So it's a big change, mindset change.
Yeah. Sure enough. I guess, yeah, they also have to take that leap of faith and be willing to absorb failures
Yes.
as we go along.
Yeah, I mean, will the system allow that is a question.
Yeah.
And that's not an easy change.
Yeah.
How much will you be blamed for making that decision is a question.
Yeah. It's a whole conversation in itself. This can dive into the rabbit hole of cultural change in India, that too. I think.
Because otherwise, the entire from TRL 1 to TRL 9, there are ways to get funding and actually build your product. That is kind of getting solved, which is a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. So you've answered. I was going to ask if it's easier today to start and build a deep tech startup. I guess you kind of answered that question. So let me ask you about the same question from Ideaspring's point of view. One thing that even sort of the layer interested party would have noticed after RDIF is that now suddenly a lot of people are saying we are deep tech investors who were never there yesterday, but today they are deep tech investors. So what does that sort of imply for genuine deep tech investors like an Ideaspring? Will it increase competition for you, or do you think your track record will hold you in good stead, or a bit of a combination of all of the above?
See, I think combination, right? Number one, I think founders are very smart. In the first conversation, they will know who actually understands what they're building, right? Because deep tech, they will know. If you're having a conversation, the kind of questions you ask, good founders will know immediately. Say number one. And then number two, I think, people claim whatever, but I think market will correct itself, right? Market is always, it'll make sure that guys who understand things will survive, guys who don't understand things will not survive, right? It has its own way of correction. So I think market will correct. Yeah, in the short term, I think, the competition will increase, because lot more people will go after the same deal that is there. So I think we should expect that. But we are not too concerned about that, because we do only five deals, 4-5 deals a year. And we are quite confident that our pipeline will feed us into that. So we are not very worried about suddenly, there's so many deep tech guys, what we will do. No such thing. Yeah, we are sleeping well on the ability to have access to the deals. Now, taking the company forward, yeah, that's those sleepless nights we'll continue to have. So to answer your question, yeah, there will be competition, but we are not unduly worried about getting the right set of deals. And the second thing we have also done is the quantum of investment going into the seed round are also gone up, right? So it's now 3 to 4 million. Many guys who claim deep tech, they are very early, and deep tech companies typically require more capital. So that way, the capital that we have in Fund 3 will help us kind of stay ahead of the pack, because we are able to write larger checks and we are able to syndicate with other funds that are there like us, and we look at a lot more syndication going forward. So I think we have the ability to clear path for how to move forward, but there will be those questions that are there that we know how to address and answer, and but continue on our journey.
Yeah. Okay. So again, a slight segue, since you mentioned syndication, and I'm expanding the idea into alliances, partnerships. I know that you've previously done deals with Axel, and now you're part of a sort of a cross-border alliance, which is committed to bringing over $1 billion into deep tech startups in India. Can you give us a quick update on what's happening on that alliance front? Any investments that have already been made?
So I think IDTA was India Deep Tech Alliance was an alliance, like also mostly from the Indian funds as well. A couple of other funds or even CVCs that are there. I think these initiatives are generally very good to further the ecosystem, right? But I'm still very concerned about Series A investments from funds outside of India. That's a weak point for us, and that's what we have been also discussing in the industry, that we need to enable that. Right? Seed, we are good. Beyond Series B, we are good, because beyond Series B, people don't care where you're domiciled, so on and so forth, because they're looking at scale at that time. Growth is where you're looking at. Whereas Series A is still, you're on the cusp of the growth. Still, people, funds outside of India feel very nervous of investing in the companies domiciled in India or founders being in India, and so on and so forth. So I think that is still a challenging space for us. So even though IDT has happened, I don't know if that question, that CDCA thing, will be addressed satisfactorily. So I think that's the momentum we have to build, and then as more and more companies in this space, they get to the next level, and you start seeing some outcomes. Hopefully, from some outside will come and invest in Series A companies in India, but that's still a concern area.
So you're saying that you would welcome if overseas investors really get into the Series A scene in India in deep tech.
We need capital in that space.
Can you talk a bit more about this? Why is that the sort of domestic network of LPs is not able to sort of fork up enough capital for an Ideaspring, or in general the other deep tech VCs as well, to strongly meet the demand at Series A? And you also just said that seed has become 3 million, possibly a Series A is 10, 15 million.
Yeah.
So yeah, talk about what's happening domestically with your LPs and so on.
See, again, in terms of risk aversion, right? So VC as an asset class is still not fully understood, and fully when people are fully aware of. And the number of when you say domestic LPs, you either need to talk to institutional LPs or endowments, or the government funding like sovereign funds, or you look at industries, corporate ventures, or you look at family offices, or you look at individuals, right? In that order. Now, if you look at the sovereign and the other like public sector funding, taking fund of funds position, sovereign has done good, right? SIDBI changed the game when they came out with FFS 1.2. Now SIDBI has come out with FFS 2.2. Government has come out with 1 lakh crore. I think the government is doing this job, right? So the capital is coming from there. The capital from the public institutions slowly opening up, where banks are slowly starting to invest. And now you're looking at Provident Fund, LIC, insurance guys trying to open up, because that opens up a lot more capital, right? And then you'll see more outcomes coming out, and hence that flywheel again, like we discussed, will start to move faster. But when it comes to family office and retail guys, you see, retail guys are still not very, very rich, right? How many retail guys will write, how many funds can they invest in or whatever? And we have talked to a lot of retail guys, you'll limit to 1-2 crores and they will not invest across funds because once they put money, they want to see returns. And, normally if you invest in a fund, you're looking at 7 to 10 year cycle, or 8 to 12 year cycle before you start seeing returns. So retail becomes very hard. In case of family offices, like I said, some of them who have invested before have not seen enough returns. Or some of them were saying, no, we'll invest ourselves directly into the startups, which I think is very, very hard. It takes a lot to invest in a startup and take it to the outcome. So this asset class of VC is still not well understood because people will say, okay, what's your duration? We say, okay, our fund cycle is 12 years. So my money cannot get stuck for 12 years. If I put in the market is giving better returns and it is more liquid, or I can churn the money in real estate. The thought process itself is very different. So there's no focus on saying, okay, I'm okay in staying in this for 12 years, but I have to support innovation in India, right? So that still it's hard for them to digest, and it is their money, right? At the end of the day, it's their money and they make the calls. But our thesis is if you don't allocate some capital for innovation to happen in India, we'll continue to be a laggard from a technology perspective. And that has to change. 0.7% of GDP going into innovation has to become 3%. More has to go in. But that's a change we are all working towards, and it needs patience. So that's why, you still see local capital still being hard to raise in these cases than the external capital because of all this asset allocation things. VC as an asset class is still not well understood.
And on the flip side, are there any pitfalls to having overseas firms investing at the critical stage of Series A?
I don't think so. Investors and investors, they're coming in for the right intention. So it's okay. See, look, you need capital, right? Like, for example, even in mutual funds, that FPI is coming and investing in a company, you need capital. So I don't see any flip side. It is good only. It's all good. Because when more capital can be infused into the ecosystem, that will help everybody. We should do that.
Catch the second half of this conversation next week, where we talk about what might represent the Flipkart moment of India's deep tech sector and Ideaspring's next fund. To support my work, please subscribe to my posts at indiatechreport.in. I'm Suryaprakash. Thank you for listening.